desperate necessity for any country to develop and achieve an acceptable standard of living for all its citizens. So, the vision is about development, but it's also personal. Yes. Now let me go to the project presentation. These are the 10 points I'll go through. I'll go through the frame in terms of sustainable development goals, the facts, the aims, the outputs, the universities, the study programs, what are the African universities doing in this project, what specifically is KNUST doing, training of trainers, and then the curriculum development. First, the project frame. We have been trying to locate our project within the overall broad framework of the Sustainable Development Goals. And as you see the Sustainable Development Goals on this slide here, you will find the biosphere, the ecological sustainability at the bottom as the most important. Then comes the social sustainability in the middle, and on top comes the economic sustainability. We have located ourselves under SDG 4 that talks about quality education at all levels, and we have also located ourselves under the SDG 17 that talks about global partnerships, because of course the international partnerships in this project is one of the very key drivers for the project. We learn from each other and we network across the continent and between continents. Now, it's a project under the Erasmus Plus Capacity Building and Higher Education Program. When we had our last meeting in the Building Stronger Universities project, we were talking about how can we continue our collaboration. We found the Erasmus Plus program was completely and totally suited for our purposes, dealing with higher education as it is. So we wrote an application, was mainly me writing the application, but of course with input from other partners, and we were lucky to get funding. So we have 5 project partners, 5 African universities, 5 European universities. The official project start date was 15th of October 2017, so we're already halfway. And it's a 3-year project. The maximum grant, very close to $1 million. The $1 million is a maximum you could get, so we tried to get as close to the $1 million as we possibly could. And due to a number of unforeseen events, the project has actually been delayed with almost a year. So much as, officially speaking, we are halfway through, in reality we are maybe 3/4 year into the project by now. But we'll come back to what we have achieved so far. The aims to initiate sustained educational change in higher education study programs, to ensure that the curricula are highly relevant to the contemporary economic and social needs of Africa. This idea of contemporary to economic and social needs of Africa, that is of course the core principle underlining problem-based learning with point of departure in real-life problems from the local society. We want to equip the graduates with skills and competencies for employability and self-employment. The Vice Chancellor mentioned unemployment as a huge problem. We want to try to deal with that problem by making graduates able to actually, through their problem-solving skills, create their own companies. Maybe starting out as a small 1-2 person company, but hopefully then gradually growing and even creating employment for other people. And of course, we also want to foster this trans-African and transcontinental cooperation between higher education in the 2 different continents of parts of regions of Africa, East and West Africa, and also between East-West Africa and the EU. And we also want to create the cooperation locally with external stakeholders. Now, the outputs. We hope to be able to produce 5 study programs, 1 per university. And mind you, I was just saying now to the local task force here, we are not in one go trying to change everything within KNUST. We have to be modest. We'll look at 1 study program, and we hope that once we have created this study program as a best practice study program, then other teachers will look and see, hey, what is it they are doing in this program? They are so successful, the graduates are so happy, the students are so happy, and the graduates are highly acclaimed by industry, and so what are they doing? Could we maybe copy something? So hopefully we can create a change that will be positively evaluated and admired by others, who will then say, we want to do something similar to what they have been doing in this particular program. So in that way, they can serve as best practice examples, and because we also train the trainers, there will be a team of trainers who are capable of training other colleagues who come up and say, we are interested in trying to do something similar to what you have been doing in your program. So that gradually the change will spread from program to program, from department to department, from faculty to faculty. Now the partners, 3 universities in Denmark. Those 3 universities were all partners in the Building Stronger University projects that went before this year, and that's the reason why we are still there. Because it's now an EU project, we need other EU partners. We need a minimum of 3 different program countries, so we invited the Royal Institute of Technology Stockholm, with whom Aalborg University has had a close collaboration for many years, and we also invited the Polytechnic University of Catalonia in Barcelona in Spain, with whom we have also had quite a close collaboration for a number of years on sustainability. The African partners are, for 4 of the 5 universities, the same partners that we had in the BSU project. Only the University of Energy and Natural Resources has come in as a new university, because we were originally, when we started the project, collaborating with the University of Ghana, but the University of Ghana had to withdraw because they had to finish their curriculum and they didn't have time to wait for all these delays that happened with the project. So we were lucky that the University of Energy and Natural Resources wanted to join the project instead. But those, of course, are some of the factors that led to the delayed start of the project. In Tanzania, we have 3 fairly small universities. KNUST is by far the biggest university in the project, by far. I mean, you outnumber the other universities many, many times in terms of number of students and staff and program and what have you. So Green University is a fairly small university in Morogoro. Kilimanjaro Christian Medical University College, also a fairly small university, and State University of Zanzibar, also a fairly small university. So the other 4 universities are fairly small. And of course, we are looking, the other universities are to some extent looking towards KNUST to see what you people are doing and to try to learn from your experiences. Now, the chosen study programs. Here in KNUST, it's Bachelor of Science, Aquaculture and Water Resources Management, University of Energy and Natural Resources, Renewable Energy Engineering. In Sokoine University of Agriculture, it's a Bachelor of Science, Information Technology, KCMU-CO, Master of Science, Health Monitoring and Evaluation, and SUSA wants to do a Bachelor of Science, Environmental Health. Now, the main roles in the project for the African universities is to participate actively in the training, of course, and there are 4 training packages, because we have said that the 4 cross-cutting issues are student-centered learning, e-learning, entrepreneurship and innovation, and sustainability. So this means that sustainability and entrepreneurship innovation are elements that have to be integrated into the contents of the study program, in whatever courses those issues fit into. But the e-learning and the student-centered learning deals more with the form, not so much with the contents, deals more with the form of the teaching. So the student-centered learning is the approach to teaching and learning, with more focus on the students' learning than on the teacher's teaching. And e-learning is drawing, of course, upon newest and modern ICT technologies to the extent where it's reasonable and possible in the program delivery. So each university has appointed 2 members from their staff to participate in each of these 4 areas to become knowledgeable specialists within these particular areas. Then, based on the training, each university will then design or redesign the chosen curriculum. So here in KNUST, the Bachelor of Aquaculture, Water Resources Management is the program that's up for redesign, integrating entrepreneurship, sustainability, innovation, and delivered through student-centered learning and e-learning tools. Here we have the local task force team. The Vice Chancellor is our member on the advisory board. We have an advisory board of top managers to secure the top support for the educational change that we want to achieve. Then we have Professor William Uduru, whom you have already met, as the local project coordinator. And then we have a local project manager. We have, as you can see, 2 trainees in each of the 4 specialist areas. And of course, we have the subject matter experts also, the people who are knowledgeable on aquaculture and water resources management. So that's how the local teams have been constituted in each of the African universities with these different roles. Now, the training activities, the training of trainers as we've been doing, we have already held 2 face-to-face workshops within European universities. There's been some online training before and between workshops, and we are now in the process of doing a 3rd peer-to-peer training workshop within each of the African universities. And the reason why my colleague Eileen and I are here in KNUST today is because tomorrow we will start on this African peer-to-peer training workshop here within KNUST. Now, the two EU workshops, as I said, they've been held in different universities. For example, for students that are learning, the first workshop was in Aalborg, Denmark, where I hosted it. The second workshop was in Stockholm, Sweden, where Sara Nyberg, who is our colleague from Sweden, hosted it. For example, the entrepreneurship innovation, the first workshop was in Stockholm, in KTH, and the second one was in Copenhagen. So this means that those 2 people from KNUST who have gone for any one training area, they have seen 2 different European institutions, been exposed to 2 different ways of doing the same thing. For example, in Aalborg, we do problem-based learning, but when the student-centered learning trainees went to Stockholm, in Stockholm they do what they call challenge-based education. So then the trainees were exposed to what's challenge-based education and how do you do that. So that was another perspective on student-centered learning. So by putting people into 2 different universities, we expected to be able to broaden the perspective, to broaden the sum of experiences that they gained from the training workshops in the EU. And mind you, training workshops were not just sort of theoretical training or classroom training. It was also bringing people out on study visits to talk with people outside the university, to see relevant innovation projects or whatever might have been. In Aalborg, I know they went for an interesting sustainability project. So people have been experienced to not only training but also to actually visiting places of interest and relevance to what they were doing. Now, one of the things about this project that is quite different from what has been done in most other projects I know of, and certainly also quite different from the so-called BSU, the project I'm referring to previously. In that project, we also did training of trainers, and my colleague Henrik from Copenhagen University and myself, we traveled down to Tanzania, respectively Ghana, and did 3 workshops with a couple of months in between. And sometimes one of the Africans, mainly the Tanzanians, would come up and sort of nudge our shoulder and say, "Hey Mona, how come that it's always you guys traveling to Africa? Maybe we would like to have a travel to Europe at some stage of time." And of course, yeah, sure, of course, you're right. I mean, why don't we do that? So then I started thinking about that, and of course it's much more expensive in terms of travel expenses, because bringing 2 Europeans to Tanzania doesn't cost as much as bringing 6 Tanzanians to Denmark, for example. But still, we could see the point of doing it. There might be more commitment. People would be out of the institution, so they wouldn't have all the students to bother them. They would be together with the other trainees from other institutions 24/7, so they could bond and network much better across the 2 regions from East and West, and even between universities. So the training is organized as what is called the Jigsaw Classroom, and this is actually an officially known approach to organizing project work, where, as you can maybe see on this little picture, you have a so-called home group, and in that home group there are, in this picture, 4 students. They have to do a project. The project has 4 topics. So each student goes to one of the expert groups to learn about one of the 4 topics that needs to be integrated into their project work. Then once they have been studying that particular expert topic, they will return back to their home group and teach the others. So it draws very strongly on what we call peer teaching and peer learning. And it's claimed on the web page that it actually increases commitment and coherence and collaboration, etc., etc. So I thought, well, why don't we try that? And that's exactly what we did. So from each of the 5 African universities, you have them here, you have Knust at the top because that's the biggest one, SUSE, UNR, SUA, KCMU. From each of these universities, each university sent 2 persons to each of these 4 workshops in the EU. So this looks like this here. Now, each workshop has a total of 10 trainees from 2 persons from 5 different universities. Then next workshop 2, you have the same picture. Again, it's the same 2 participants, of course, going to the training within the same area, but now it's within another EU university, as I said before, in order to broaden the perception or the perspective. Now comes the 3rd workshop, which we are just about to launch now. So now these people have to return back. Note the order of the arrow. Now these people who learned about student-centered learning, they're now returning back to their own universities as experts in student-centered learning. And similarly for the entrepreneurship innovation, the e-learning, the sustainability people. So all these experts now return back to their university. It's the same 2 participants. They've been trained on that area in 2 different workshops, in 2 different institutions. They now go home to train their peers. And of course, they also go home to contribute their specialization into the curriculum development process. I was quite excited about this concept. It took me quite some time to explain it to the other trainers, how it's working. And I must say that from what I've seen so far, from my interaction with trainees who came to Aalborg, I actually think that we did indeed achieve the engagement and commitment that we were looking for. We have achieved the bonding. I can see when I look at my WhatsApp group on student-centered learning, they are so busy exchanging experiences and exchanging resources, etc., between East and West Africa. So I actually think that this approach has quite achieved what we were looking for. There's also a short video on YouTube on how it works, which you can watch if you're interested in it. I want to tell you, of course, that this jigsaw approach, that is, by its very nature, it is a student-centered teaching and learning approach. So if you want to do project work, it is possible to do it according to the jigsaw approach. Now, what do we want to achieve in the curriculum development? This was about the training. Now, Knust is the work package leader of what is called Work Package 6, and the main objective is to redesign partly or fully the Bachelor of Science Aquaculture Water Resources Management curriculum to meet local socioeconomic needs and equip students with entrepreneurial skills for employability and self-employment. And this is what we hope to achieve, the one best practice program that may serve as a best practice example for other programs and other teachers. Then, of course, we don't want the project to just end when funding ends. We want the project to carry on, the change to be sustainable and be carried on. So we also need an institutional strategic plan for how to continue the project activities beyond the duration of the project. This curriculum development process is, of course, carried out by this interdisciplinary local task force, which consists of the experts on student-centered learning, e-learning, entrepreneurship, innovation, and sustainability, plus the subject matter experts, plus any other members of the curriculum development team that the university may deem as necessary partners in that approach. Could be internal quality assurance people, or what do I know. But our local task force, the people we have trained, are of course a central part of the curriculum development team, that's obvious. Now the main outputs. There would be this redesigned curriculum, including some teaching learning material for the bachelor. There will be a team of trainers in KNUST who can train other teachers interested. There will be a Knust stakeholder panel. I'll come back to that in a minute. And then, of course, there'll be this institutional strategic plan on continuation of project activities. And one of the things we see there as an important element would be a pedagogical staff development plan, so that new staff taken on for teaching within KNUST will actually be introduced to student-centered learning even before they start teaching, so that they know what it's all about and how to do it. Now, the stakeholder panels. One of the crucial issues in the project, because we're talking so much about employability. Now, obviously, when we say employability, who can define whether graduates are employable or not? In other words, whether they have this employability that we want them to have. That's, of course, the employers. So the employers are crucial partners in trying to develop a curriculum that will actually meet local socio-economic needs and that will make sure that graduates are employable. So members of such a stakeholder panel need by force, I would say, to include external stakeholders / employers, which could be private companies, could be local public institutions, could be NGOs or community-based organizations, but some institution, organization, company that has an interest in the particular area of the study program, in other words, in aquaculture and water resources management. We would also like to see internal stakeholders, and by internal stakeholders we understand students. Students are, for some funny reason, the very, very best people to talk to if you want to find out how teaching functions and how well students learn. So we want to see students as internal stakeholders on the stakeholder panel, older students who have already passed through a program similar maybe to the aquaculture program, or former students, now graduates who are working within the area. So this stakeholder panel is, in our perception, quite a crucial element for the collaboration between academia and industry. Now, external stakeholders may well ask, what's our role? And they may also ask, and what's in it for us? Now let's take what's the role of external stakeholders first and foremost. They're supposed to participate in and contribute to the curriculum development, including the program qualification profile. Because, as I just said before, who is better in a position to tell us what competences graduates need, rather than the people who is actually interested in employing our graduates? So we need to hear from the employers themselves, what competences should a graduate have for you to be willing to employ this person. So this program qualification profile discussion with external stakeholders is crucial for the employability aspect. So that's one role that they play. Another role that they can play is that they can provide real-life problems from within their companies, within their organizations, within the institutions, for students to work with in their project work. So that students feel that what they are actually trying to do is something that is of importance, not only to their teachers, but also to people outside the university. And that's one of the driving forces that motivate students highly. I can tell you from my own experience in our university that working on real-life problems, seeing that this here is something that may help improve life for somebody outside the university, it's a huge driving force for students. So we want the external stakeholders to give us their problems so that students can work on them. And we also want them to provide traineeship positions for students, of course. But now, the external stakeholders, at this point in my presentation, the external stakeholders might well say, yeah, this is fine and good, but what's in it for us? What do we get out of this here? You're always asking us to give, to provide, but what do we get out of it? I would say 4 points. The first main point actually is that companies, employers need to somehow take their part of social responsibility for quality higher education in any one country. Not only out of interest, for, so to speak, for their society as such, but even also for their own good. Because where do they get the employees from, if not from the graduates among higher societies? So, No, I was here. So the social responsibility is one point. Another point is, of course, that having students work on a problem from your company, well, maybe the students are really smart people and can come up with, if not the absolutely perfect solution, then certainly a workable solution that you might take and modify slightly, and then all of a sudden you have a solution to a problem you've been striving with within your company for some time. So that's another interest, and the people who came to Aalborg for the student-centered learning, they actually talked with industry representatives who were collaborating with students and who said exactly that. They also said that another interest is, of course, that collaborating with academia means that you are upfront with what is happening in the latest technology, in the latest methodology, in the latest research within your area of interest. So it keeps you abreast, so to speak, with other competitors within the same area. And finally, also not to be overlooked, if you have a group of students working in your company, and so you see them and you interact with them, you have a very good chance to sort of pick the top of the cream of what you call it, pick the top of the group for a potential new employee. So it also gives you a range of potential employees that you can pick from. So I definitely think that this collaboration between industry and academia is hugely relevant and beneficial for both parties. Now, for KNUST, the two external stakeholders that I know of, and I haven't had time to discuss this with the local task force yet, but at least the two that I know of is the Ghana Aquaculture Association, which is located in Accra, and then the Pilot Aquaculture Center in Mampong. There may be others, but we'll have to discuss that over the coming days. This was the end of my presentation, and thank you very much for your attention, and I would be very happy to take questions if there's a need. Okay.
We would like to take the second presentation, then we would do the discussions together. So the second presentation will be done by Helen Camacho. So let's welcome her with a hand of applause.
Thank you for being here and also for inviting us to participate in this workshop on these days. First of all, I want to say that I am not Danish. I am from Costa Rica. So I can relate very much about this change that you want to do now in the university. Maybe you read about myself here in this brochure, but what I want to say about me is what I have been trying to do in the last 12 years is to try to find ways to improve our teaching that will support the development of our countries. Costa Rica, as Ghana, is a country that is in a process of developing, and then that is where I really want give this contribution about how can we change, how can we improve so that we get the students, the professionals, the citizens that we want. And then I am going to talk about curricular development. So now Mona did a very nice presentation about all the things that we want in this project. And then she mentioned 4 aspects, at least, that we want to go through: student-centered, e-learning, sustainability, innovation, and so on. So it's really a change. I mean, how can we do that change now? And then we need to modify, to redesign the curriculum, and that is what I am going to tell you a little bit about. How can we do that? So when we talk about what is curricular development, so I have here is a design process to create improvements in the educational system. Already Mona said for this project what we want to improve. So it is clear where we want to go. So now we need to do is how can we do that? It's really, I mean, when we are going to design a curriculum, development of the curriculums, we really need to have this clear aim, where are we going to be? it has a purpose, really. I mean, and in this project is really, really ambitious project, but it's really nice because we really believe that it could bring a change in the university and also in the country in general. And then when we talk about curricular development, we are talking design for change. And that is really an important issue, that we are aware that we want to do a change. So if we want to do a change, we need in some way to design for that change. And that is what we are trying to do with the curricular development and all the activities that we are developing in this project. When we talk about curricular development, we need to be very clear, where are we right now? I mean, you already have a curriculum, you have students who are graduating and so on, so we really need to know where are we now? What are the outcomes that we are getting from that program? And then we need to have, where do we want to be? And then the question will be, how do we get there? And that is this curriculum development. When we talk about curricular development, we are really talking about also about this reflective practice. We really need to ask the key questions, the difficult questions, and the uncomfortable questions. That we look at ourselves, our teaching practice, and the practice in general in the program, in the bachelor in this case. So we need to ask ourselves what kind of learning is going to take place in our classroom. Mona was mentioning about how student-centered approach, the experience that she had in the last years working here in Africa. I can tell you a lot of experience of working with Costa Rica and Latin America. So we really need to ask this question: what kind of learning do we want to take place in the classroom? What will the students learn? What are we aiming that they will be in the end? I mean, like, how will these students develop curiosity, for example, critical thinking, how they will be innovative? And we are mentioning here in this project also innovation and so on. So how we'll develop that? Very important is also, like, for our context, how they will become a better person, how they will help actually our countries to develop, to progress, and so on. And then when we have answered that questions, we need also to ask what kind of teachers and teaching do we need to achieve these skills, these competences of the students. So if we try to answer this question about how do we approach curricular development, so it could be very different perspectives. I am going to present here 2 ways to approach them, and a very specific tool that we are going to use in this project that is called ABC Learning Design. So if we take this perspective of looking at curricular development as learning design practice. So what we are saying is that we stop in some way of seeing teachers, lecturers as teachers only, but really think that they are designers. They are designing our curriculums for getting the skills and the competences of the students. So we really need to look at these mindsets, really trying to help them to develop this, how to ask questions, living in this uncertainty. I mean, like, we are really sure right now, and this nowadays it's only about change. I mean, like, that is the only thing that we are sure about it. So how do we get that? Because many times we want the curriculum to be very structured and very fixed, so that we are sure that we will get the results. But it's not like that. So we need also that you're talking about this visual thinking, creativity thinking, and so on. So here what we propose, so there is a proposal about how to do this process. I am not going to go in details about these steps, but the first one is really important because we need to understand the context that we have, the content, but also the participants. who are our students and who are our teachers, who are our community, for whom, I mean, like also the stakeholders, all these participants, the stakeholders in the process. So that is one approach to see curricular development as a design activity, design process. Another way is to look at this process of curricular development. As I said, it will be a change process. So how do we manage that process? So one way to do that is really taking this participatory change approach. It means like we will involve all the people who are really influenced by this kind of change. We will get their, we will try to understand their perspective. We will try to get their knowledge as well, what they want to say about this process and so on. So it's really providing, opening spaces for communication, for sharing knowledge, for creating ideas and being innovative and so on. So it's not a top-down approach, but really in the middle. I mean, like really opening these spaces for creating knowledge together. That is very aligned with the student-centered approach for learning as well. And then finally, here is a very concrete example about how can we do that. There is a tool, a method that is called ABC Learning Design that was developed by this Natasha Pirokic and Clay John from UCL in UK. And they are proposing like, okay, our academic staff, they are very busy. So how can we really get something done really relevant for all this process of curriculum development in a short time? So they are proposing, okay, this workshop, if you develop this workshop, it will take 120 minutes. You can get really a good inputs and inputs also for the curriculum development. And they talk about 3 aspects, elements that this workshop will have. Is this storyboard that you have here in the picture, and 6 different kind of learnings. And then you will also have very specific activities for this kind of learning. So in this first storyboard, what we are going to say for a program, I am talking here now for a program, that's the workshop could be used also for a course development. But here for a program, we will say, okay, how the students, I mean, in the 1, 2, 3, 4 years, what kind of activities are they going to have, what kind of courses, what kind of learning are they going to have there. So they propose these 7 learning types. Once again, I'm not going to go deeper on them, but it's just that you have an idea about how we are going to work with this curriculum development here in these projects. So we will be talking, okay, is a learning activity type, about acquisition, discussion, practicing, investigation, production, collaboration, and so on. So we really will try to identify all these interaction points with the students during the different courses that they will have. And then for each of these different kind of learning types will be very specific learning activities. So here I am not going in details, but then for each learning type that we want to develop to carry on in our curriculum, so we will be designing very specific learning activities. So that is just a view, a picture about how this kind of workshop will take place. So here we are talking about really having a participatory approach for change, and also very visual. I mean, like really trying to get all the stakeholders involved in these projects, get inputs, very important, from students, as Lona already mentioned, so that they will be participating in these kind of workshops, and to have this visual presentation of the whole program. So it's a way to get people engaged in the communication, in the discussion, and then sharing their knowledge. And that is all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elaine. I'll invite Professor Drew to come up stage to lead the discussion just a few minutes of discussion. We don't want to keep long here.
Okay, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Vice Chancellor, thank you for your apt and prompt attention. But just quickly to remind ourselves once again that what is being done today is the mission of KNUST. If you look at the mission, you see entrepreneurship. What it all means is that we want to see our graduates exiting KNUST being self-employed or employable. And in doing that, this is what we have tried to do here. This project has the Vice Chancellor, the Advisory Board member, and I have my team of members here who have traveled to Spain and Sweden and Denmark to be trained. Are you here? Can I see you? Please, can you just stand up? I see Samakumia here. Eric, please. Yes, let's see you. Yes, these people have gone out. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So as Mona presented, they have traveled to Sweden, to Spain, and to Denmark. They've had theoretical training and also practical training. Now, these ones are forming a core team, or what you call the academy. We expect that when the best has been demonstrated with the aquaculture program, then in other departments later on, as the Vice Chancellor was whispering to me, they will come to the other departments and do say and make sure that we achieve what we are supposed to achieve as a university. We all know that the country is facing problems. Those of us who've been here, the issue of Unemployed Graduates Association, and not only here, but the continent of Africa has faced this problem. As a university, when problems come, we don't sleep. It is our job to address the problem. And this problem is expressed in the AU document, Ghana's Vision 2020, the SDGs, and I've also mentioned that KNUST, this is our mission, and the Vice Chancellor is apt and ready to address the problem head-on. We started first with BSU1, and we had a work package there dealing with creation of jobs or job creation. BSU2, we have entrepreneurship, and within that we have AI, academia, industry relationship, which is being developed and is still being developed. What it all means, as Mona has presented, we cannot, as a university, do things without consultation with our stakeholders. That thing is over. If we want to address unemployment and be self-employed, then we need to work together with our industries. I'm aware that some departments send students out for internship, but the way it is being done, sometimes without any focus, and sometimes it is done without any aim at all. This time we want to be very serious because it is important that the students go to the industries. And when they go there, they just don't go and sleep and be sent around, but they are going there to solve problems. In this way, the stakeholders who are the industries will be happy to receive our students because they know they are coming there to solve problems. So that is why in this project, we find stakeholders as very, very important right from the curriculum development process. They come in to present the real-life problem in the industries. And the lecturers should be aware of that. when we send the students there, we ask them to go and address those problems. When they come, they will have a good feeling that at least they are addressing real-life problems. And again, as researchers in BSU 3, our research should not be that type that we do without any recourse, any link to real-life situation. We talk about industry things that are needed by our people. So if you are supervising your supervisor, what is the student researching on? Who are the stakeholders who are going to make use of the results? We want to see the relevancy of the project and the result that is coming up. So the project is addressing that, and that is why our stakeholders are very, very important right from the beginning of the development of the curriculum. And then also we involving our students in it. Of course, when you go to the industries, in the developed countries, industries who come to stakeholder meetings like this, nobody pays them per diem, nobody pays them TNT, because they are coming in to push the best students. We have found that from BSU 1, BSU 2, BSU 3, anytime we invite our stakeholders, they are asking for per diem and TNT. And I ask, why are you doing that? Because they find the whole thing irrelevant to them. And that's the way we have practiced. We want to make that change. They should see the relevancy of our students, we academia and industry students going to them. So anytime we invite them or our students go there, they will find them very, very useful. Again, I want to just mention that the training that is provided for them by the industries are also relevant to us. I want to encourage that we continue, but as Herring has said, how do we do this? It is by curriculum development. The way you design the curriculum produces the product. If you don't design the curriculum properly, you cannot produce the product that you want. So, for example, in engineering, your curriculum has certain content because you want to produce engineers. But this time, we want to produce people that are employable and self-employed to address the national problem, which is unemployment, and continental problem, which is unemployment. And we exist to do that. Failure to do that as a university, we have failed. So I want to end here and ask for the next thing that we're going to do, that is a reflection. If there are questions that we want to ask towards this, what have been presented, and what we need to do, if there is anything that we want to ask, ladies and gentlemen, the floor is open. Okay, so the VC and the panel should come up. Questions are going to be addressed. I think we've all gotten the message very, very clear in terms of our teaching, supervision, and what as a university we want to do. And we want to just set an example in this nation, on the continent, as a university where our products come out and they are self-employed and they are employable.
Okay, thank you very much, all the speakers and the audience. We'll want to have a reflection, but only for 10, maximum 15 minutes, so as to address some of the concerns you may have, some clarifications if they are needed, because all what we want to achieve this morning is to excite you sufficiently so that you will follow up on what we are initiating. So please feel free to put up your questions. As academicians, we're supposed to also research, find information. So whichever we cannot answer right now, we'll promise you we'll find the answers later. So don't be afraid. Just put up all the questions you may have and keep us working. So who do we start with, please? Sure.
Hi there. Hi, my name is Joshua. I've got 2 questions, if that's okay. So I saw in the list of stakeholders, students, employers, and the university, but I didn't see anything about regulatory agencies. And my question is, in trying to redesign your curricula, have you factored in the requirements of the professional bodies? So I'm a visiting professor from within the Faculty of Pharmacy, and I know they would have in the Form D a professional body requirement. And so the question is, have you factored that in? That's my first question. Can I go to the second one? Yeah. In the second one, when Professor Joe was talking, he mentioned some of the things that were not being done properly. But my question is the opposite side is, have you done any survey to explore already existing good practice, so to avoid reinventing?
I need to keep it down. Yes, I would be happy. Thank you very much for the 2 questions. I think both of them are very good questions. Concerning the regulatory agencies, the professional bodies, the accrediting organizations or institutions and so, that is part of the normal curriculum development process that any university has to and therefore not been so very concerned with that, because we actually, shall we put it this way, we left it to our advice member in KNU to make sure that that things are cleared off with these regulatory bodies, with the professional bodies, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So they will also be somehow involved in the curriculum development process at the particular stage where they need to be consulted.
Yeah.
But they will not be part of what we call the stakeholder panel, because the stakeholder panel is a panel of people whom we actually expect to meet at regular intervals during the curriculum development process,
Yeah.
until the point where the local task force says, okay, now we have here a proposal for a redesigned curriculum. Now we want to submit that to professional bodies, to regulatory agencies, etc. And then after that, of course, it will be, in the end, it will have to be accredited by a national accreditation board.
Yeah. That's
So,
right.
I hope that's a satisfactory
Yes, it
answer
does,
to your
yeah,
first
thank you.
question. Concerning your second question, have we done a survey? In this project, we have not done a survey in that respect. We have done what we call a needs assessment, trying to identify the particular study program that would, one, be relevant to the university, be relevant in the local society, and also be relevant in priorities. So we'll try to identify a particular study program that would satisfy this criteria for relevance at all levels. We did, in connection with the Building Strong Universities project, which was called Building Strong Universities E-Learning and Problem-Based Learning Project. So in that project, we did not actually talk about the contents of whatever curriculum development we did. We were, in the project, we were looking at course level only. So we only did PBL e-learning at course level, not at program level. But in connection with that study, we actually did a baseline study on e-learning and on problem-based learning. And from that study, that's where I took the quote from this young student from KNUST, who said that problem-based learning would go a long way to solve the myriad of problems that we have in this country. Yeah. So there was a baseline study which showed that yes, there is some e-learning, but not very much PBL.
Yeah. Can we take some any other inquiry? Yes, Steve.
Thank you, Professor Mona and Helen. Yeah, it was a very brilliant presentation, and I really enjoyed everything here. I want to say that in Ghana here, we have the Ghana Education Service, and there is a curriculum development section, which is responsible for drawing all the schools in this country. What we are doing here is very important, and I'm suggesting that at the end of the project, if we could influence that stage, it would be very important, because the products we receive in the university here are those that are coming from the curriculum developed by the Ghana Education Service. So mine is just it's a contribution, not a question. Yeah, thank you.
That was a comment, a contribution. So, Mona, I took that. That will actually make them student-centered, so that when they leave out there, you know exactly what to do with what they've learned. And without the stakeholders, it will just be keeping them in the classroom and stepping out there as if they are extreme foreigners who don't even know what they should use their knowledge for. So the important thing here for all of us is that we need to identify these stakeholders and make sure they contribute immensely into the curriculum development and even the revision. Okay, so let's think broadly. Don't leave anyone out, because each one of them may make a significant contribution to the curriculum that we develop. And if we do that, we'll also be addressing the concern of the stakeholders that the universities sit somewhere and they develop curriculum without our input. That is why the products do not fit our market. Can we take one last one or two? Yes, Prof.
I want to know from the project coordinators whether there is anything within the project to upscale this and to mainstream whatever will come out into all other programs in the university. If there is none, then I hope my Vice Chancellor is listening. It's an opportunity for our internal mechanisms that approve curricula that are regularly being updated and design new ones that come up, so that we can pick the ideas that are being promoted here as part of our system of ensuring that every curriculum reflects what is coming out of this. What I'm also worried about is that if the ideas look wonderful, I would be happy if they can also consider whether it is possible to develop a curriculum of this nature and deliver it for a large class. Thank you.
Let me pass a small comment on this. advisory committee of this project. One of the, a project has so much in terms of the quantum of money to deliver on certain things. But as a university, we will start by making sure that every college has a program that is relevant to creating jobs. If you look at the College of Agric and Natural Resources, we picked the aquaculture one, but I think that horticulture is one key one that can also guarantee tomato production, cabbage, lettuce, etc., which anybody at all can find a small piece of land and begin to practice. If you go into the other colleges, we'll leave it to the provost and his staff within the college to select one program that they think, if the students go on this hands-on, student-centered, can also change the dynamics of the students within those colleges and to make them employable. One of the things that is also coming up is that a lot of the stakeholders are saying university education is not relevant. It's not even answering any question, and that explains why some time back, I remember there's this popular journalist, Kwesi Pratt. Kwesi Pratt was telling us that if you have University of Science and Technology and yet they cannot produce solar light, I wonder what he was trying to say, but now he's changed the story. When we had, Tia replied him in a very good way, and now he's changed the story. It is a combination. University education is a combination. We research, we give the product out there. It is for a business person to pick it up and translate it into jobs. But now we also want to identify certain programs that it is easy to have some small startups and begin to employ yourself without the big companies trying to take up the responsibility from you. And this is where we want the colleges to identify, for instance, if you go to pharmacy and you go into the herbal medicine, they can start using the herbs, pelletize some of the products, and begin to sell. It's easy. So those are the little things that I want to start off with, and I hope that with time we'll be able to upscale this. And like you said, the whole university, every program at all, will have this kind of component that delivers on jobs.
Thank you very much to the VC for that comment. That was on your first question on upscaling. And yes, definitely, the reason why we have the advisory board and the reason why the VC is a member of that advisory board is to secure that the project has the support, so to speak, from top-level management within this university, also has the interest from top-level management, and then, of course, it is top-level management responsibility in a certain sense to make sure that there will be some upscaling. More specifically, in the what we have done in the project is we are training a team of trainers. So there is now, when we have completed this workshop, there is a very competent team of trainers who can train other colleagues who might be interested in doing something similar to what we'll be doing in this project. We do have this issue of a strategic plan for continuation of the project after the project funds come to an end, which is also, of course, part of an upscaling, including this pedagogical staff development program that I mentioned should be a part of the strategic plan. So that's also part of an upscaling event in a certain sense. Now, having said that, I want to share with you a little anecdote. I have a colleague of mine, Dorothy Okello. She is a senior lecturer in Makerere University in Uganda. She came to Denmark for a 2-day session for opening the UNESCO chair, but that's another issue. She was told about problem-based learning. She listened to students, she listened to teachers, she listened to what we were telling her about what we do in terms of problem-based learning, and she went back to Uganda. 2 days later, she sends me an email. This was 2007. 2 days later, she sends me an email saying, "Hey, Mona, I was very inspired by what you guys are doing up in Aalborg. I want to do something similar to that in my 2 courses. I'm teaching 2 courses, one first-year course on telecoms and one fourth-year course on telecoms. I have 40, respectively 80 students in these 2 courses. Here is my plan for what I want to do. Could you please give your do's and don'ts and your good advice to my plan? And I did so. And I visited Dorothy in 2013, and she was still doing PBL. So that's as much upscaling as it takes if you actually sort of think this is a very good initiative and I want to try to do something. So it is possible to do things on your own. Now, in the BSU project, we did PBL at course level, and we agreed that it would be interesting to try to do it more sort of interdisciplinary between different courses, and that's the reason why we did this project here. This was to your first question. To your second question, is it possible to develop for a large group? What we do in Aalborg, we have programs where we have like 500 students. I don't know if you would consider that a large class. When we give the lectures, sort of, they are in the 500 plus class, if we have enough room for 500 in one room. When they do their project work, they're divided into project groups of 6 students each group. So it's a matter of organizing out of the large group problem.
Thank you, Mon. You may have. So I would like to take the opportunity to give you a very short summary and also take advantage of the meeting and just announce certain interventions from the grant office. One, for example, we've recently shared or distributed the call for Erasmus Plus again, and this is how we can take advantage and develop new proposals as to towards institutionalization. How do we institutionalize the outputs that will come from this intervention? Okay. We also invite you to aggressively participate in the BSU 3 activities where we have these interdisciplinary research groups ongoing. We have 4 of them, and supposed to be accommodating lecturer researchers, students from different departments, across departments. We recently had given seminars on interdisciplinary research. We call that MIT, Multi, Inter, and Trans. What you need to know about that and how you can make that part of your research effort. Please participate, and you'll get insights that will lead you to even develop your curriculum, because there the emphasis is which stakeholders you need to sort of bring on board. There's one on health. There are 3 others in the natural sciences. So if you make contacts, we will direct you to that. We also have the AI lawyer Kwame is back there. He's intensively involved. So please let your students who are innovative, who are entrepreneuring, make contacts with him at the what do you call that? The incubation centers, and they will be able to translate their talents into some profitable ventures. We've heard so much about this Aquaculture project this morning. They've told us the structure of the project. I call the IDs of the project, the activities that they were going to carry on, the expected outputs, and what we stand to benefit from. KNUSC, as well as the stakeholders who might be involved. Okay. We need to have champions, so let us actually congratulate College of Agricultural and Natural Resources for at least identifying one program that is going to be sent through this pilot process. There are many more, and I'm glad we have the provost here, we have the deans here, we have the HODs here. William, you've been very strategic by inviting these key elements here, and I believe that you can identify some practical
programs. I'm not sure all of them will land themselves so easily. So let's pick the low-hanging fruits, the ones we think that will be exciting, people want to join, so that we'll demonstrate that this can be done. We need to bring out new kind of students. Those that will start thinking about science as an entrepreneurial activity. What I say is that research has now become an entrepreneurial activity. It's become a business, all right? So for our interdisciplinary research activities, we inculcate into the researches the idea of innovation and entrepreneurship. So you start identifying the problem with a product, marketable product in mind. You don't finish and ask, what should I do with this? You start, I'm going to do this, and I'll make money out of it. All right? This morning I was reading a small clip that said that a university has several millions of dollars, and they want to give it out for free to train what? Students. How do they make that? They made them through their patents, all kinds of things. So let's start to take advantage of these things and identify champions who someday we can look back and say that we made a good investment. Let me thank the Vice Chancellor for stepping out. I think we're enjoying this, isn't it? Stepping out of the big room and coming to join us and share with us what's also motivating us. You know, when he's here, he's saying that we can do it and you must do it. So thank you for being here and sharing that with us. Our speakers from on the project, Mona, you are like one of us. You know, Helen, you are welcome. I've not met you here before. You are welcome. So we continue to come here. Thank you for sharing with us all this, and we hope that as we go through, our experts, the one we train, our trainers, will have the motivation to share what they've learned with many of us. Thank you again for your participation. We step out there for a group picture as an evidence of what having carried out this program. There are some evaluation sheets going around. We will employ you to tell us what went right, what went wrong, and what we must learn so that we incorporate it into our next activities. On that note, thank you so much for being here this morning with us.
Okay, shall we please? Since they talked about student-centered learning, and would ask one of the students to pray for us and with us. Any of them can. Okay.
Please, we are praying. Our Heavenly Father, we are grateful for you bringing us here. We thank you very much for all ideas shared and everything listened to. We ask of you that even as we are about to implement everything, you grant us the strength and the wisdom. May we be able to see this through and may be successful. Be with all trainers, be with all trainees, be with everyone who came here. In our own little ways, may you enable us make this a success. So as Ghana and every other country involved will be successful and stand up. In Jesus' name we pray with thanksgiving. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for coming. Please, if you fill the form, you can leave it on the table. We'll come and pick them. Okay.